Most people reckon saving your first 10 grand is all about earning more money. Sounds logical, right? But honestly, that's usually not the problem. The real issue is a lot less obvious. It's where your money ends up once you get paid. For heaps of Aussies, their savings just sit in the wrong place, doing absolutely nothing for years without them even realizing it. It's not one massive mistake that ruins everything. It's just a bunch of small decisions that quietly add up over time. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that mistake is, and I'll walk you through a simple step-by-step system that can help you save your first $10,000, even if you're on a pretty average salary. I see the same story play out all the time, mate. Someone's earning a normal income, maybe 60, 70, or 80 grand a year, and they decide, right, this is the year I'm finally going to get serious about saving. The first week goes great. They're checking their spending, feeling motivated, everything's under control. A couple of weeks later, they stop looking at their bank account, then a stressful week comes along and suddenly takeaway, a night out, or a bit of online shopping turns into an emergency. Before they know it, a few months have passed and their savings haven't really moved. Then they start thinking they're just hopeless with money. But that's usually not true at all. Most people aren't bad with money, they just never built a system that actually works in real life. They end up relying on motivation, and motivation always runs out eventually, so that's exactly what we're going to fix today. First, we'll talk about why saving your first 10 grand feels so much harder than every milestone after that. Then we'll work out your real numbers instead of guessing, build a budget that actually fits your life instead of some perfect spreadsheet fantasy, and automate everything so your savings keep growing without you having to think about it every payday. We'll also look at the biggest expenses that quietly drain your income, ways to boost your earnings if you want to speed things up, the easiest way to track your progress without becoming obsessed with your bank balance, the mistakes that catch almost everyone, and finally what you should actually do once you've reached that first $10,000. Just before we jump in, a quick heads up. I'm not a financial advisor, so this is general information, not personal financial advice. Think of this as a practical framework to help you get started, then make decisions that suit your own situation. Alright, mate, let's start with the reason this first 10,000 feels so hard, because once you understand this, everything else starts making a lot more sense. Here's the thing. Your first $10,000 is the hardest money you'll ever save because nothing's helping you yet. Your savings aren't really earning much, you don't have a financial buffer to fall back on, and you haven't built the habit yet. Every single dollar comes from your own discipline. That's why it feels slow. But once you've got that first chunk sitting there, things genuinely start getting easier. Your habits become automatic, your savings begin working for you, and you stop feeling like you're starting from scratch every single month. So the goal isn't to stay motivated forever, because nobody does. The goal is to build a system that's so simple and consistent it keeps working even when you don't feel like thinking about money at all. So where do you actually start? Well, before you worry about saving more money, you've got to know where your money's already going. Sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people know exactly what they earn each year, yet couldn't tell you what actually lands in their bank account after tax, or where it all disappears by the end of the month. So here's what I'd do. Grab your last 3 months of bank statements and go through them properly. Add up everything coming in and everything going out. Rent, groceries, fuel, public transport, subscriptions, takeaway, random online purchases. All of it. Don't do this to make yourself feel guilty. You're just collecting information. You can't build a solid savings plan using guesses, because guesses nearly always make us think we're doing better than we actually are. Once you've got those numbers in front of you, it's time to build a budget that actually matches your real life. And this is where heaps of people get it wrong. They create a budget for the person they wish they were instead of the person they actually are. If you know you grab takeaway a couple of times a week, don't pretend you're suddenly going to cook every single meal at home. That usually lasts about 4 days before the whole plan falls apart. Instead, make room for one takeaway and find savings somewhere else. A realistic budget you'll stick with is always better than a perfect budget you give up on after 2 weeks. As you're going through your spending, split everything into 3 groups: things you genuinely need, things you could cut back on if you wanted to, and habits that you've started treating like necessities. That's usually where the biggest opportunities are hiding. Most of the time, it's not the daily coffee people love blamming. It's the subscriptions you forgot about, delivery fees that quietly add up, or spending that only happens because you're bored, tired, or just looking for something to do. Now, once you know where your money should be going, the next step is making sure it actually gets there automatically. And honestly, this might be the most powerful thing you do. The moment your pay hits your account, set up an automatic transfer that moves a fixed amount straight into your savings. Do it before you even have the chance to spend it. That way you're not making the same decision every fortnight. You make the decision once, set it up, and let the system do the work. A lot of people think they're terrible with money, but really they're just relying on willpower every payday. And let's be honest, after a long week at work, willpower isn't exactly something most of us have heaps of. Automation takes that problem out of your hands. Quick question for you, mate, and be honest with yourself. If I asked you exactly how much money left your account last month, not roughly, but the exact amount, would you know without opening your banking app? Most people wouldn't, and that's completely normal. It doesn't mean you're bad with money. It just means your money's moving around without much structure. And that's exactly why having a system matters. Now here's something a lot of people completely overlook. Setting up the automatic transfer is only half the job. The other half is where that money actually ends up. Plenty of people transfer their savings straight into the same everyday account they use for spending, or into an old savings account they opened years ago without ever checking if it's still competitive. Meanwhile, there are high-interest savings accounts that can pay noticeably more interest on exactly the same money. You're not taking extra risks or doing anything complicated. You're simply giving your savings a better place to sit while you're building them. Interest rates change over time, so I'm not going to throw specific numbers at you because they'll probably be different by the time you're watching this. But the idea stays the same. Spend a few minutes comparing what's available before you leave your money parked somewhere earning next to nothing. It's one of those small changes that doesn't feel exciting today, but over the years it quietly puts more money back in your pocket without you lifting another finger. Alright mate, now that we've sorted out the savings side of things, let's have a look at the other side of the equation, spending less in the first place. And here's where a lot of advice misses the mark. People love talking about skipping coffees, but the biggest wins usually come from the biggest expenses. For most Aussies, that's rent, transport, and subscriptions. They're the costs that keep showing up every single month whether you're paying attention or not. Rent isn't always easy to change overnight, but when your lease comes up, it's worth negotiating or even thinking about whether sharing a place could save you a decent amount. Transport's another one that's worth looking at properly. Once you add up fuel, rego, insurance, servicing, and parking, owning a car can cost a lot more than people realize. And then there are subscriptions. They're sneaky because each one feels cheap on its own, but before you know it, you're paying for services you barely use anymore. Spending half an hour checking your automatic payments can sometimes save you $50 or even $100 a month without changing your lifestyle at all. Of course, there's only so much you can cut before life starts feeling miserable. So if you've already trimmed the obvious stuff and you're still finding it hard to save, the next lever is earning a bit more. Maybe that's doing some overtime if it's available, picking up a side hustle using a skill you already have, or learning something new that helps you land a better paying job down the track. The important part is what you do with that extra money. If every pay rise immediately turns into a nicer car, more shopping, or bigger weekends out, nothing really changes. But if that extra income goes straight into your savings automatically, you'll reach your goal a whole lot faster without feeling like you're sacrificing everything. Now let's talk about tracking your progress because this doesn't need to be complicated either. In fact, checking your savings every single day usually does more harm than good. Some days it'll go up, other days life happens and it goes backwards a little. That's completely normal. Instead, pick one day each month, have a quick look at your savings balance, write it down somewhere and compare it to the month before. That's all you need to do. Watching that number slowly grow over time is far more motivating than staring at your banking app every afternoon wondering if you're getting anywhere. Even with a good system though, there are a few mistakes that catch almost everyone at some point. The first one is treating your savings account like a backup spending account. Every time something feels urgent, you dip into it, promise yourself you'll replace the money later, and somehow later never comes. The second mistake is getting way too excited in the beginning and setting your automatic transfer so high that you can't actually afford it. A couple of weeks later you cancel the whole thing because it's putting too much pressure on your budget. It's much better to save a smaller amount consistently than a huge amount for 2 weeks. Another trap is comparing yourself to other people online. You never really know what's happening behind the scenes, so comparing your timeline to theirs doesn't help anyone. And finally, don't wait for the perfect moment to start. There'll always be another excuse, another bill, or another reason to put it off. Starting today with an imperfect plan is almost always better than waiting 6 months for the perfect one. So let's say you've done it. You open your account one day and there's finally $10,000 sitting there. First of all, that's a massive achievement, so take a second to appreciate it because a lot of people never make it that far. But what comes next? Well, if you don't already have an emergency fund covering around 3 to 6 months of your basic living expenses, that's usually the first priority. That money gives you breathing room when life throws something unexpected your way. If you've already got that covered, then it's worth looking at any high-interest debt you might have, especially credit cards, because paying those off often gives you a better financial outcome than almost anything else. And once you've got your emergency fund sorted and expensive debt under control, that's generally when people start looking at investing, whether that's extra super contributions, index funds, or other long-term investments. But that's a whole conversation on its own, so if we pull everything together, it really comes down to a pretty simple system. Know exactly where your money's going, build a budget that actually fits your life, automate your savings so you don't have to rely on motivation, make sure that money's sitting somewhere that's working for you, cut back on the expenses that make the biggest difference, increase your income if you can, check your progress once a month, and avoid the common mistakes that quietly slow people down. And if there's one thing I'd love you to remember from this whole video, it's this. People don't build wealth because they make one brilliant financial decision. They build wealth because they stop making the same small mistakes over and over again. That's what really changes things. It's not about one lucky break. It's about fixing the little leaks before they turn into big problems. And honestly, mate, the day you hit your first $10,000 probably won't feel like some huge movie moment. There won't be fireworks or confetti falling from the sky. But something much more important happens. The next unexpected bill won't immediately send you into panic mode. You'll realize you finally created a bit of breathing room for yourself, and that's one of the best feelings money can buy. Once you've experienced that, you'll understand why building good financial habits is worth every bit of effort. If you know someone who's been saying, "I'll start saving next month," for way too long, send this video their way. It might be exactly what they need to finally get moving, and I'd love to hear from you as well. Out of everything we talked about today, what's been the hardest part for you? Is it sticking to a budget, saving consistently, or just getting started in the first place? Let me know down in the comments.